Welcome to Dream Big with Big Dreamers, conversations for career growth, inspiration, and insight. It's time to dream big. Hey there, Scott. How you doing?
I'm just ready to dream big. I'm so ready.
Right. Well, I've got a question for you. Are you a networker? Would you consider yourself a networker?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and it's more dispositional. I genuinely like people and having new friends. And so I find, I'm still, later in life making new and deep friendships. So I'm not one of these people that has like their set group of close friends from like high school or college. Like I find, I can think of a couple friends who I talk to several times a week who I've met this year.
But no,
And
but is
they're
that
really
just
close.
simply being friendly? Or is that truly being a networker? Like, are you using these relationships to help them and to forge yourself in your own career?
Yeah, they're all people that I'm working on collaborative projects with right now. Yeah. So there are people that I'm trying to think. Most of them have been through podcasting and other kind of production stuff that we're thinking through different ways we can work together. And they become, they become colleagues that are fun too. So I think I network because I enjoy it. Like I genuinely like the newness of people. It's not something where I have to kind of, all right, it's time to put my networking pants on and, I'm going to grit and smile. It tends to be something I genuinely enjoy doing because I think people are generally the most enjoyable aspect of life. Right? I mean, they're the most unpredictable, interesting, adventurous part of life.
Yeah, it's
Unless you're climbing K2 or something, I guess that's
well, for introverts, I think it's a little harder, to do that, to reach out. But at the same time, I agree. There's people are interesting, and sometimes you do, to reach out is a good thing. But our guest today is an amazing networker. His name is Larry Kaufman, and Larry is the best-selling author of the NCG Factor, a formula for building life-changing relationships from college to retirement. He's a connector, giver, and rainmaker who lives his life to help others succeed. He's a senior level sales and operations leader running the Midwest region for Jefferson Wells. Larry's held sales and operational leadership roles in public accounting, financial consulting, recruitment, and other industries. He has hired and developed inside and outside sales forces. But what I think is really the big thing, the big claim to fame Larry has, is that he really is this powerful force in helping small, mid-market, and larger companies by providing hundreds of corporate introductions to companies and business professionals wishing to expand their client base. Larry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. And I am wearing my networking pants today, so thanks for referencing that, Scott.
So
excellent.
That's
what we like to hear.
So Larry, you wrote a book, The NCG Factor. I know what NCG stands for, but maybe our audience doesn't. Could you enlighten us?
N is for networking, C for connecting, G for giving. So they all come together and build this formula to build these life-changing relationships, from the, onset of college all the way till the time we retire and through, during our retirement as well. Don't stop building those relationships.
I like how you say it's from college, but honestly it could be even earlier than that too. And isn't it funny that like they don't really teach that in school, do they? The power of relationships and how to network and how to do that type of thing.
They really don't, but some do. Some STEM related programs. I have actually spoken to, some of the junior seniors in high school that are on that fast track to, they want to be leaders. Through the Girl Scouts, I spoke to an aspiring group of young women who want to be leaders. It was called Camp CEO. So I am catching some of those early that do want to take that path and do want to learn about building relationships. So kind of fun to catch them earlier, but I thought putting high school to retirement, I didn't know if I could, capture that audience, but I don't mind helping them at that younger age.
Yeah, to me, it's just, I know I didn't really learn about that until much later in life. And in some ways, I do wish that, it was something that was more important. So I love that you go back and you say, for the, with the college, um, you know, to be a connector and to be a giver, means you're working with takers. So how can a person pivot from taking and receiving kindness to giving and providing value?
Well, I always ask people after they read the book, it's in the book, but if they hear me speak or just in general, just to reflect on, your own legacy, your living legacy today. How do people perceive you? And, what would people say about you? And sometimes when people start thinking about that, you realize, well, they'd say I'm a good spouse or significant other or parent or great as a leader or a part of a team. But then beyond that, how are you perceived? What do you do? And so some people that maybe fall into that taker category, sometimes they need help to make the conversion. But if they could just say these 5 words every day, and as many conversations as they have every day, they could say, how can I help you? That taker, label is going to be removed. And they have to execute too and follow through. Because if we do say, oh, great, well, you know what, this is how you can help me. Oh, no, I was just saying that because I don't want to be perceived as the takers. But I think it's self-realization that you may be falling into that category. And I'll tell you, people have read my book and they go, you know what? I think I've been a taker.
Yeah.
I haven't really. So they almost have to read the book to realize that. But I love helping people make that conversion. And I also think you could help takers make that change. And it's guiding them to be better at giving, better at connecting. So sometimes they need a little coaching from people like you, Scott, and Donna, and myself.
But I mean, even if you do, give and help a taker, I still feel like that goodness is still out there in the universe, and it may come back to you. So it still sort of balances out. But how did you become a connector? Did you have that like epiphany? Was it something that you were taught? I mean, at what? Because Larry, you are so helpful. You are so kind. You are always there. You are always thinking of other people. I have no idea how you manage this 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 impressive network that you have. And I'm always in awe when I see you out there and what you do. I think how did he learn it? And 2, how does he manage it?
Well, the way that I learned it was from someone else who sort of coached me down that path. And I wrote about Brian in my book. He's an attorney. And as a newer attorney, I met him many years ago, probably about 2006 or 7. And I was told that I'm going to be introduced to an attorney. And in my line of business that I was in at the time, it didn't really align. Like, I was like, why am I meeting some attorney? And, he did IP, intellectual property. But the woman that introduced me said, Larry, he's just a great person. He actually is great at developing business, and he does something unique. And what his unique ability was, at the end of our meeting, he said, Larry, I'm going to introduce you to 2 people you don't know. And I thought, that was weird to me. I was like, why? Why are you going to do that? He said, because it's going to enhance your network. And what I didn't realize is he was a connector, and he was connecting me to other people. And I started to reflect upon that. And I thought, well, maybe I could start to do it. So it took me a little time. It wasn't like, oh, I'm right away, now I'm going to be a connector. But I think getting to see that type of approach, when I started to meet with people, I thought, oh, Donna, let me connect you to a couple of people you don't know. And so that's kind of where it started, but I had to hone that. So it has taken me a long time to be a good connector. And the way I'm a better connector is by building a network of people that I may never do any business with, but they're going to help other people that need their services or solutions. just like Donna, what you do. You help so many with, profile, resume, optimization, development, all the things you do. The creativity of you and your team is unbelievable. I love what you do. So maybe, and I've used your services, but maybe I don't need them all the time, but so many others I know need what you do, and I don't do what you do. So it's good to have a Donna. It's good to have a Scott. It's good to have, I have weird people in my network all over the world that help other people. They'll never help me, but they're helping other people.
And you become that person that people go to because they know you have that network and they need something and they come to you. And I almost see that then works to your benefit because they're always coming to you. So of course they're going to help you out when you need that assistance as well.
Well, and I agree. I think if we could all be a go-to for those in our inner circle and even some of our outer circle, that's a great thing. We're always thought of. And so I've told my team that works for me that if your clients only think of you for what we market and sell and provide versus they come to you because their child needs help with an internship or some coaching or their charity, something with their charity, they're thinking of you for other things besides what you do in your job, and you're developing a better relationship with your clients.
I keep thinking about that one quote. I use it in my LinkedIn presentations, but it's Robert Kiyosaki. He says, the richest, most powerful people in the world look for and build networks. Everyone else just looks for a job.
I like that.
And I think there's a lot of truth to that. A lot of times people think, oh, let me just, let me not use my network. Let me just, throw my resume into, an applicant tracking system or a black hole of, a job portal. And, I do think people like to help other people. I really do believe that. And sometimes you have to ask for help, but at the same time, you also have to be looking and seeing how can I connect and how can I help others?
Well, I agree. Actually, I was working with a business leader in the HR space, and she was kind of, downsized. Her role was eliminated. And so she was still working at that company. And I said, hey, and she's helped me before. And I said, by the way, we should connect. I want to figure out how I can help you land your next job. And she was just, totally taken aback. She didn't ask. I asked her.
Yeah.
And if we can do more of that, the world's a better place. And I sleep better at night when I do that. It just makes me happier, when we help other people like that. So
when would you say you started all of this? Has this been from the beginning of your career, or did it sort of happen later into your career that you really started?
Well, Donna, that's why I wrote the book From College to Retirement, because in college I wasn't doing it. In my early career, I wasn't doing it. It was really mid-career. So it was, 15, 16 years ago that I started that process because of that attorney. But I wasn't a giver and connector in college. Believe me, there was no connecting. It was connecting, alcoholic beverages to my mouth. That was it, right? And so I wasn't thinking about helping others. I wasn't tutoring anybody, probably couldn't anyway. I wasn't building relationships, and so it really took me time, and it was really kind of mid-career. That's why I'm trying to catch people now earlier. And you said high school. Hey, fine, if I can get them at high school, awesome. In high school, believe me, college, I wasn't great at doing anything there on the connecting networking front. High school, forget it. No. And I can't remember that far back.
But I'm thinking, what was it like for you? Because I remember when I stumbled upon LinkedIn, and I'm thinking LinkedIn must have, when you first stumbled upon it, were you like, oh my gosh, this can actually support what it is that I believe and I'm doing.
Well, LinkedIn. So I joined LinkedIn when there was about 1,100,000 members.
Was that like 2005, 2004?
2004.
Okay.
But I was invited when there was about 100,000 by a gentleman that used to work for me. And I totally just blew off that email. That was spam, whatever. And I just I kept it and I tucked it away. And then I went into doing some recruitment as part of a business I was in with a partner. And I found that invite to this LinkedIn thing. Well, then it was at 1,000,001 and I joined. And I was using it for recruitment. But then, I met this woman, said, hey, I have a group of like 30, 35, small business owners that meet once a month. You're using LinkedIn. Can you talk to them how to use it as a business owner? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not a big public speaker and I'm just learning LinkedIn, and I did it. And that was my start of speaking and training on LinkedIn. But when I started to really realize how powerful it was, it changed everything for me. And so, you're right. I mean, it's been a godsend to me. I'm a better connector because of it. I'm a better giver because of it.
I'm curious, when you run into people you're working with that look, they are building networks, right? And they're connecting people, but it's not materializing for them, right? There have to be those people where, they're relational people and they're making contacts and connectors, but it's not really expanding their own professional horizons or capacities. Are there common threads you see where it's like, hey, I'm trying to be a giver, but it's not really materializing? Or do you think they're just actually not doing it? Or is there ways where people do the practices but get stuck or just have bad luck?
Well, I think it's the network you build. I mean, we can't take every networking meeting as well. So are they meeting with the people that align with what they do? And I meet with a lot of people that really don't do what I do. I built that foundation network of the people that align with my business, people I typically would interact with every day, and asking how I could be helpful. I think part of it is, are you expecting in return, right? So it does come back around. So don't network and try to help and give and connect with people expecting something in return immediately. But if you build the right network of people thinking about the other person, that's why I don't like to be referred as that networker necessarily. If you define networking as I've redefined it in the NCG Factor, when you're thinking about the other person rather than a collection of business cards, I'm good with that. So are you doing NCG networking? Yes. But for people out there, it takes some time to build it, to become the right kind of giver and the right kind of connector. But I was helping a gentleman transition, and he was not a connector and he was not a giver. And I didn't give away his name in my book, but he was in his early 50s and really had a great career, very successful, 30 years in the real estate world. And then, found out that they were changing direction of the business, the family business, and said, you're out, and he had advance notice. But here he is, 53, and his network was really tiny, a sliver in the real estate world. And so when I met him, I expanded his network, still in the real estate world, but to people that are connectors. And when he started to see that, he started to become a connector, like I did from that attorney. And he liked it. He said, I almost wish I didn't get a job, which he did, from this process, because he loved connecting so much. So I think people shouldn't overthink it. And it's baby steps, and don't expect in return it will come back. But start with the people that align with your world, and then you could do like I did, bringing in all types of strange people from all over to honor requests that people have that are strange and normal too.
So
what's the strangest person you brought in your world?
Scott,
what's the strangest contact?
Scott, we're thinking the same thing. I'm thinking does he have clowns and balloon artists?
Exactly. Mimes, other mimes,
I would say, what though? I would say, strange requests or unusual requests may be, hey, my kid wants to be an FBI profiler. Not everyone could help that person connect to someone in that world. My kid wants to work for the Secret Service or go into law enforcement. You wouldn't think to come to me, where I come from more of the accounting world, right? That Larry's the guy I go to for that. So, but if it was, I want to be a clown, I can connect you to someone that's a clown. So I could do those things. And I do like when people ask me weird stuff. I mean, Illegal stuff, no. Weird and unusual requests where you don't know where to go. But yes, if you want to become a clown, Scott, I will connect you and get you set up.
Yeah, I love the little cars they drive. I think I think that would be the real virtue of it, right?
Yeah.
Plus, I just love that song. Bring out the clowns. That like it's fantastic.
But here's the thing, Scott. This is something you might not know, but like people do clown on the side. And I was at a networking event, met this very lovely man who was in IT technology, and we did a networking like coffee, and he produced a picture of him and his wife in full clown regalia. It was awesome. He was hysterical. He's now since passed on, but there are people who do clowning on the side. So.
Yeah, I don't.
I believe it.
Do people feel threatened, Larry, by your network? I mean, do you ever find that maybe sometimes you don't get opportunities because they're scared of you and what you bring to the table?
No, I think they want to learn how I did it and how they could, maybe replicate it on a smaller scale. But I don't think people are threatened. I think people are intrigued and interested. And not everyone has done that. That's why I tell people it's good to self-reflect on your living legacy and frankly, what are people going to say when you're gone, right? So I want there to be a party at, when they're giving my eulogy and singing and dancing and alcohol and saying great things, that there was good things to remember me by. So how are people remembering you today? So I think it's not about being threatened. I think it's just about that self-reflection and understanding how I did it and how you could replicate it even at a smaller scale.
How often do you self-reflect? I mean, do you put that into your calendar? Because a lot of our previous guests have talked about that, the importance of, knowing who you are, what you stand for, where you are, that type of thing. And something that keeps coming back, I don't think a lot of people really do that. So if a person was to start, really going deep inside, into themselves, how do they do that? I mean, I always suggest journaling to people, but I mean, is this something that you do weekly? Is it something that you do monthly? Is it something that you just do when hour of the wolf at 3 a.m. and you can't sleep?
Well, I will tell you, in writing the book and thinking about the concept of my book was probably 4, 5, 6 years of self-reflection, and that I needed to articulate into my book what people should be thinking about doing. And so my whole book was kind of self-reflection and thinking back how terrible I've been. I felt so bad when I looked at my own legacy. What are people thinking about me? And going back, just early career, mid-career, before I made that change. And so I think, people need to self-reflect in different ways. My journaling was my book, right? So that was my self-reflection. So people could do some journaling. It's maybe just talking to people in their network. So how do you perceive me? Have I been a good trusted advisor, personally a good friend? It could be spouse, significant other, parent. All those things are good for self-reflection, but I want people to go outside of their family role and outside of but in their role in business. If you're a leader, how does your team think about you? If you ask your team, like I tell my team, look, I want you to know I am here to help you, your clients, family members, and I do. And I push it out to them. Hey, don't forget I can help you here, there. Make sure you come to me. And so, I've done that. It's just about how people want to do it. So reading the book, I do emphasize that, and it's a task at the end. You got to self-reflect. How do you feel about yourself? Have you been a giver, taker, connector? What do you feel about your legacy today? What are people going to say about you? And if you don't feel good when you're gone, when that eulogy takes place, well, that takes a lot of change then. And I've had many people tell me they've changed the way they do things. I mean, just reading the book, I've self-reflected, I'm changing. And that's what I want people to do.
Where do your sense of values come from? Because obviously your project is a really, in your life, your own career is very value driven. I mean, does that come from a spiritual tradition? Does it come from reading philosophy? Does it come from family roots? I mean, what's the value driver?
So, I love my family, and my family was a giving family, but, it wasn't a family of connectors and all that. I think, where it came from, I think it was just, I really think it was just that attorney that I met and that started it. And what happened is I had my transformation. I had my epiphany by seeing what happens when you connect someone else to someone else. Maybe they didn't know, but I say in my LinkedIn profile, I'm a precise connector and powerful connector, because when I connect someone to someone where there is something they have in common, they help each other, there's commerce that goes on, or just they found their brother from another mother, their sister from another mother through that connection, and then I hear that back, that's what's driven me. And so I think it's just been evolving, Scott. It wasn't the values I had early on. Maybe it was in me somewhere. Writing the book really helped me, but actually being that early connector and then seeing the connections, not just by saying I'll connect you to two people you don't know. I'm going to connect you to someone that you may not know, that you should know, that you didn't know, that's going to be helpful in your business or life, and because of X, Y, and Z. Or I just found out I helped an individual connect to a significant other, because I also do some matchmaking. I'm a connector. And he said, that person you introduced me to, we've been dating for a year.
Wow.
And it's very serious. And he said, I've been holding back and haven't told you. So I love that. That's powerful. So it's those types of things that have just made me want to do more and be more precise about it.
You're like a genie in a bottle. I want to rub the bottle and see what you can do for me, dude. I mean, this sounds fantastic.
That would be fine. I don't know how quite to take that, but for sure.
Can you just give me 3 networking wishes? You sound amazing.
Well, thank you, Scott. You got it, buddy. Whatever you want.
See, he's a giver. He's practicing what he preaches. He's a giver.
That's right.
Larry, if you could give our audience just like one tip, maybe one easy next step to get them started on this path, besides purchasing the NCG Factor, which I highly, highly recommend, what would that one tip be?
The one tip, it's those 5 words. I think that's the easiest way. Once you start and ask, how can I help you? And I know there's listeners that are in that transition as well in networking. And I actually tell the folks in transition to say, hey, Donna, thanks a lot for, taking the meeting today. I'm glad that Scott introduced us. I'm in transition, but I also want to know, how can I help you today? And when you do that in a transition meeting at the onset, it sets a different tone for that entire networking meeting that's not all about you.
Well, Larry, my goodness, who says that? That would be the number one differentiator. I have interviewed many people. No one has ever asked me, what can I do for you? Talk about really setting yourself, above and beyond all the other people. I think that's fabulous, fabulous advice.
Thank you.
Larry, thank you so much.
This was fantastic.
Donna, Scott, you guys are the best. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with everybody, and thanks for letting me do similar.
Oh,
real pleasure.
You helped some people today, Larry. I have no doubt. Thank you so much.